Have you ever gotten super excited to learn a new skill, only to quit just a few weeks later? Yeah, you're definitely not alone. In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly why that happens, and more importantly, show you a powerful method to learn way faster than you ever thought possible, just by changing your strategy.
You know the feeling, right? You're all fired up to learn something cool, maybe a new language, an instrument, or even coding. But then, a few weeks in, that fire just goes out. You hit a wall. So what's the deal? Why is this so incredibly common?
Well, a huge reason is that, let's be honest, the material can be so boring. A lot of traditional methods make you slog through all this dry theory before you get to the fun stuff. It feels less like an adventure and more like a homework assignment.
And then you've got the physical side of things. Sore fingers from trying to play guitar, a stiff back from hunching over a textbook. That initial discomfort can be a massive roadblock that just makes you want to stop before you've even really begun.
But this one? This is the real motivation killer. You're putting in the hours, you're dealing with the boredom, maybe even the pain, and you feel like you're getting absolutely nowhere. That feeling, that lack of any real reward for your effort, is what makes most of us just throw in the towel.
So when you mix that boredom, the physical struggle, and the slow progress all together, you get what we can call the wall of frustration. It's that make or break point where most new hobbies die, and that guitar or those language books just start collecting dust in a corner.
But here's a really powerful idea. What if you're not the problem here? What if your talent and willpower are just fine, but the traditional learning path itself is totally flawed? Turns out you can smash right through that wall, not by trying harder, but by using a much, much smarter strategy.
So what is this big secret? Well, it's a concept you might have heard of in the business world, but trust me, when you apply it to learning, it is an absolute game changer. It's called the 80-20 principle.
The fancy name for it is the Pareto principle, named after an Italian economist. But the idea is actually super simple. It basically observes that in almost anything, a tiny handful of causes are responsible for the vast majority of the results. It's all about finding the vital few and ignoring the trivial many.
And this is where it reframes everything for us. Instead of trying to learn 100% of a subject right out of the gate, what if you could just identify the core 20% of the knowledge that will give you 80% of the results you're actually after?
So the main goal here isn't to be a comprehensive expert on day one. Nope, it's to find what you could call the minimum effective dose, the smallest amount of learning that gives you the biggest, most satisfying reward. This gives you those quick wins that get you totally hooked and fuel your motivation to keep going.
Okay, let's make this really concrete with a perfect example. We're going to apply the 80-20 principle to one of the most famously abandoned skills out there, learning to play the guitar.
You know, when you first pick up a guitar, the sheer amount of stuff you could learn is just paralyzing. You've got music theory, scales, literally hundreds of chords. It's the perfect recipe for slamming right into that wall of frustration we were just talking about. But using the 80-20 approach, we're going to zero in on that vital 20%. See, to play most of the popular music out there, you don't need dozens of chords to start. You really only need a handful. In fact, let's start with just 3. That's it: G major, C major, and D major. These 3 simple chords are the foundational building blocks for a truly incredible number of rock, pop, and country songs. This right here is our minimum effective dose.
So what's the big payoff? What's the 80% result we get from mastering just this tiny 20% of effort? You might be a little surprised. I mean, just look at the power of this. With only 3 chords, you can suddenly play parts of literally thousands of songs, including some absolute classics. You're not just doing boring drills anymore. You are actually playing music, and that feeling is unbelievably motivating.
And here is the most important part of this whole thing. This is not just a guitar trick. This is a universal framework for learning. You could use the same strategy to master a language by focusing on the 20% of words used in 80% of conversations, or learn to code by mastering a few key functions first. It seriously works for anything.
So here's how you do it. First, you deconstruct the skill, break it down into its smallest pieces. Second, you isolate the vital few. You ask yourself, which 20% of these pieces will I use 80% of the time? And finally, you practice just those key components, deliberately and consistently.
And really, it all comes back to this one simple truth. This isn't about finding the most correct or complete way to learn. It's about finding the path that you actually enjoy, because that is the only one you're going to stick with long enough to see amazing results.
So, I'll leave you with this question. What's a skill that you've put on the back burner because it just seemed way too overwhelming? Think about it and let us know down in the comments what you're going to start hacking with the 80-20 rule. What's that 20% that's going to get you past that wall of frustration for good?